Greetings, COM 705. This is Ben Frazier on a very cold, dreary Monday. But nevertheless, we were blessed that we weren't hit too bad with the snow and the blizzard and all that sort of stuff that hit north of us a lot harder than it did here. I just read through your responses for the second week, and I'm very pleased with the level of discussion and scholarly activity there. And so I want to just compliment you and thank you. Of course, those questions I think are going to be key and questions that will follow us the rest of the semester in advanced communication theory. The first question about ontology, epistemology, and axiology, you'll probably see those in other classes, particularly if you take the philosophy class, but also in some of the other classes you'll see those are absolutely fundamental that are not always mentioned in the theories, but they undergird the theories. They're the sort of the theories rest upon a view of man, a view of what reality is, a view of what is, which is the ontology question. Who are we? Are we spirit and flesh, or are we just flesh? Very important question. Are we much more like a mechanism, a machine? And you'll see some theories that treat us almost like that. Input in, input out, that sort of thing. So it's in and out. Or are we much more complex than that as human beings? And how then do we understand and come to know our humanity, and what is reality really like? Is reality only made up of the five senses, or there are other things in this world that contribute to what is real? And then the second thing, of course, is epistemology. So important. What constitutes knowledge? How do we know? And different researchers and different scholars and different people understand that differently, of what constitutes good knowledge. So then, and evidence for knowledge. So then we weigh those kinds of things. And so you need to get a grasp of what those issues really are. And maybe we'll see in a minute how some of those work their way out into some of the theories. And then, for example, let me just do this. Behavioralism is very, very different. It only believes in the five senses. And that's all you can. Pragmatics in many ways is the same way. Many of the pragmatic theories that are based on pragmatism only see man in a very limited way. I wouldn't say all of them, but most of them. Or is man much more complex than that? And you'll see people like Ricoeur or Christians and other people like that see man much more holistically as not only body but spirit and soul, and those kinds of things come in. Now, you won't always see those things actively in every aspect or every research question with those theories, but nevertheless, is there room for that? Is there room for the spiritual and that side of man? And so those are issues you need to look at. And then, of course, the last one is axiology, which is really the whole issue of ought. Is there an ought or an ethic placed on man, or does that just come from the community around here? Or is there something inside us that says, this is how we should behave? This is how the world is. And we need to respond to that world. There is a divine element within our life and within our world and human nature that begs or predisposes for us to work, to live, to decide in the ethical issues in a certain way. Anyway, very, very good discussion. I think most of you got that sort of thing in that one, and that's great. I really appreciate, I think it's, and I might mess up people's names, so if I do, just email me how to pronounce them and laugh at me for a minute, but then I will try to learn how to pronounce names. I'm terrible with names, but I think Beryl was the one that started that whole discussion off, Beryl, and just did a really good job in summing up what that really was, and I appreciate that. The other two questions. First, the one about are we a field or discipline will haunt you. You really need to continue to look at that. By the way, there's some outside sources that you can read. Several years ago, they did a special issue in Journal of Communication called Ferment in the Field. And then 10 years later, they had another one. And 10 years after that, they had another one. I don't think they called it Ferment in the Field, but it's a special issue of the Journal of Communication, which talks about are we a field or are we a discipline? And it was very interesting to see. Hanisha, I thought, did a very a good analysis of that. It was brief, but very powerful. Beryl, you asked the question, what am I missing here? Well, here's the problem. Is that it is and this is a real problem within our, and I'm going to call it a field, but you don't have to. But you better have a reason to call it whatever it is you call it, field or discipline. That some scholars, how they define field, other scholars define that as discipline. There's not agreement here. And you can even see in some of these articles in the journals that you can see. So when you read discipline, don't think that everybody agrees with that definition of discipline. Or if you read field, that everybody agrees with that. Sometimes even the same journal, they contradict each other. So it becomes a real problem for us. But why is this even important? Well, here's why it's important. That a discipline, in the social sciences at least, is an area of agreed definitions. And if those definitions are not found to agree, how can you talk to one another? How can you speak to one another unless there's some agreement in how you define the field and the major elements within our field? But think about it, how Little John started out talking about the definition of communication. And there are literally, as you know, hundreds of definitions of communication. Which one are we using at what time? And one definition of communication contradicts another. And so also usually a discipline has, and we do have this, we have organizations and journals and that sort of thing. But as far as the definitions and a body of material that we all agree on, we don't have that. And you find the social sciences sometimes talking right past one another. And they don't even hardly talk to those in humanities, the rhetoricians and those others. So there is a problem. A field, of course, is a more of a general term that I feel a little more comfortable with, and many scholars follow on that. You don't have to take one side or the other in that. Just have a good argument for whatever side you take and be able to quote some people that support you. So this is important that we're able to do that. We are looking for that disciplinary status. Very few of the social sciences have that right now. Somebody said maybe there was in political science was that way. It might even been written in one of the articles that one of you read. But you know, I had as my minor in graduate school, I had political science, and the political science people there at the University of Washington, they will tell you there is no agreement. Some people follow one, some people follow somebody else, and even there they didn't have agreement. Education, same thing. So sociology, there are many different ways to approach that. So the social sciences are really having trouble finding that disciplinary status. They're still able to do research, and they're still able to construct theories, but they haven't just reached that level of agreement yet. Flora had a good response on that one too. Finally, the last one is the traditions, and here's all I want to say about that. We're running out of time. I don't want these to be too long. I try to keep them under 10 minutes. I don't know if I'll make this one, but in terms of the traditions are very useful, very helpful in making our description of the field or cognitive map of the field, but they're very messy. And sometimes you can see something fits in one tradition, but then you kind of wonder, maybe it fits here, and maybe even there. And so you wonder, where are these definitions really discrete? Are they very, very definite? At any rate, that's enough for today to say that I've gone over those questions. Keep wrestling with the traditions, see if those help you. If they don't, let's try to come up with better terms. The field is certainly trying to do that. I'm very pleased. Keep up the good work. And I did put some other questions up for you, so talk to you soon. God bless. Have a good day. Bye-bye.